Today we've got a great topic. It's why the average salesperson only sells 10 to 12 cars per month. And I got a lot of emails from a lot of dealers that said, I wish my salespeople would sell 10 to 12 cars per month. But we use that as an average. I think the average salesperson on average sells about 10 to 12 cars per month. And I want to start off by sharing something with you. I get asked this a lot. And that is what is my background? Where did I come from? How did I start? And it ties into this episode today. I grew up in Boston, and my family didn't own a dealership, but my next door neighbor owned a car dealership. And when I was a kid, I worked in the dealership. So I stocked parts, I washed cars, and eventually became a salesperson, a sales manager. I did service, a general manager, and on and on and on. And why this is so relevant is because when I sold cars, and I actually sold my very first car in 1979, excuse me. I sold my very first car in 1979. And back in 1979, the average salesperson was selling about 15 cars a month. And what's ironic is, almost 40 years later, the numbers dropped. Where the average salesperson selling less cars. Now, are there other factors that go into play with this? Absolutely. When I sold cars, there weren't as many franchises, there weren't as many dealerships, they weren't, stacked on top of one another every 6, 8, 10 miles away. So there was a benefit there, but there were less people. There were less people driving cars. A lot of people say, well, the prices were cheaper back then, but they were cheaper in proportion to what people were earning. So, my thing is this, is why aren't we getting better? Why aren't we selling more cars? You've all heard Einstein's definition of insanity, and that is doing the same thing over and over again, but yet expecting better results. And unfortunately, that's what we do. We do the same things over and over and over again, and yet we expect different results. You all have heard me in past shows talk about Fred. And I want to bring up Fred again. You see, Fred was my sales manager when I started selling cars in 1979. And Fred taught me how to sell a car. He taught me, what we called back then the 10 steps. Whether you call it the basic steps, the road to the sale, they were the basic steps: the meet and greet, the qualify, the inventory, the selection, the demo, the walk around, the service walk, negotiate, and close. And when Fred left, I got promoted to sales manager. I only knew Fred's stuff, so I taught Fred's steps. And then when I went on and someone else was promoted to a manager, they taught what I taught them, which were Fred's steps. And so on and so on and so on and so on. So 40 years later, a lot of people are still teaching Fred's steps. But Fred's dead, okay? He's dead, he's gone. But yet, so I call him Dead Fred stuff. So we're still teaching Dead Fred steps. And it doesn't make logical sense why we keep doing the same thing. Now, here's what's grossly different, and that's the customer. The customer is grossly different than they were 40 years ago. 40 years ago, you could take somebody's trade keys and throw them up on the roof and say, well, you got to stay now and buy a car. You could play these games, and you could quadruple and double and triple TO them until you beat them into submission. Can't do that today. The customer's different. But yet, unfortunately, our sales process hasn't really changed that much. Yeah, we've made small tweaks in it here and there, but have we really changed the process? You see, I believe that most of you, when it comes to trying to sell more cars, you don't understand your customer. And again, I talk about the same things over and over again. I think I do this because I want to keep, getting it into your head, getting it into your head, getting it into your head. And that is this, is should the customer be afraid of you? And the answer is yes. The customer should be petrified of you. You're a salesperson. Your job is to sell them a car, to take money from them. Now, is there anything wrong with that? No, you're giving them value. You're giving them a product for their service, for what they're paying for. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, obviously, we want to make as much money as we can. So the customer is very, very defensive. This is a buyer's market. They can go on the internet and shop very easily. They can call your dealership. And, we've talked about in the past, when people do that, they shop two things. They shop to find the information they want, the product, the price, the availability. And then the second thing they shop is you, your personality. Do they feel comfortable coming to your dealership to deal with you? So it's a buyer's market. When my kids want to buy a car, they follow the process. They go on the internet and they shop on the internet, and they want to make sure they're getting a good deal and a good price. But where the real problem starts to fall into play, why we're not selling more cars, is because of the processes and steps that we're following. So many of us are doing the same things that we've done over and over again. Allow me to give you an example. The qualification step in the meet and greet, okay? Why we still teach all these questions that we want to ask the customer is beside me. It makes no logical sense. You want to make a customer more defensive? I'll tell you how to do that. Put them through an interrogation when they first come to the dealership. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, we don't do that. But do you really? I mean, really, when you think about it, if you ask a customer what their budget is, that's a horrible question. They have to defend that answer. You don't think they're defending it. And we always say buyers are liars. My budget's $400. You ask me that, I'm going to tell you $300. Going to make it harder for you to sell me a car now because you're going to show me the wrong car. You ask me if I have a trade. I don't know whether to tell you yes or no. Do I tell you yes or do I tell you no? Do I wait till after we negotiate the deal then say, oh, by the way, I have a trade? And then if you ask me, do I have a trade? And I say yes, then you want to know what it is. And then you want to know what I think it's worth. And then you want to know how much I owe on it. Well, I don't know what the right answers are. And then God forbid I tell you what I think it's worth and what I owe on it, and you think I'm buried in the trade. You want to see the turn in a posture of a salesperson so fast, an attitude, an adjustment. You could just see the life getting sucked out of a salesperson's face. And that's why you're not selling more cars, because realistically, how many times have you put a customer in a car that was buried in their trade? It happens every day. But if psychologically you get that mindset that you're not going to sell them a car, this is why we're not selling more cars. When someone comes in the dealership, they buy cars. And again, I keep talking about this on 4 factors. And in this order, the number 1 factor is the product. They got to find a car they like. Stop worrying about their budget. They'll tell you what their budget is when they're on the lot, just by what cars they look at. Okay. Now, to go in a direction, I want to know, do they want new or used, and a coupe, sedan, minivan, utility vehicle, truck. That's all I need to know. I don't care if you have a trade. We'll figure that out later. You got to find a car you love. Number 2, you got to like me. You got to like the salesperson. If I don't like you, I'm not buying the car from you. I don't care if you give me the best price in the world. I'm not buying the car from you. So everything you do that makes me more defensive is going to stop me from wanting to buy a car from you. And that's why you're selling 10, 12 cars a month. Okay, number 3, I got to want to do business at your dealership. That's all part of your presentation. If you do a service walk, how people get along, how the dealership structure is set up. And of course, number 4 is price. I want to get a fair and reasonable price. But if you don't put me in the right car, it's going to cost you sales. And another big problem we run into, which is costing us tons of sales, is our demo drives. Now, folks, I know, I understand, I get it with COVID. I get it. Okay, but we're going to get out of this soon. This is not a forever situation. It's gone on longer than anybody expected it would have, but we're going to get through this. And I think my thought is April, May, we're going to get back to some sort of normalcy. To do a 5-minute lap around the block, you have to have your head examined. No, if you went to college to learn how to sell, they would tell you the number 1 thing is you got to build value. How do you build value in a 4-minute lap around the block? And then I hear these managers say, well, I don't want them to put too many miles on the car. They're going to buy the car. What do you care how many miles are on the car? Well, we don't have gas in the cars. Then put gas in the cars. Well, we don't want the salespeople gone that long. What if something happens to them? They all have cell phones. Listen, you want to sell more cars, you got to understand the buyer. And the buyer wants to fall in love with that car, and they will. And then that brings up the next thing. When we're on demo rides, we ask too many questions. This is where we get tied up again in these questions. Who's the first person you're going to show your new car to? Where's the first trip you're going to take in your new car? Can you picture this car sitting in your driveway? Now, I know not everybody does that, but why would you do that? Those are innuendos. They're trial closes. And people know this, and they get defensive. All you're doing is making it harder for you to close a car deal. Listen, not every time. 75% of the time that a customer says to you at the end, I want to go home and think about it, I'm going to tell you right now why they said that. Because of the first 3 factors. You didn't find a car they loved, they don't like you, and they don't want to do business at your dealership. I'm telling you that right now. That's most of the time when you don't sell a car. If you're going to sell the dealership, how you could not do a service walk, again, is besides me. Why would you not want to sell everything that you have? Listen, we teach in our training the 4 rules of sales. And the 4th rule of sales is to catch the customer pleasantly off guard. And these are the things you have to do. The other thing that we talk about all the time in training is to not do what everybody else does. That's why the average salesperson sells 10 to 12 cars per month, because we all do the same things that everybody else does. One of my kids, they wanted to sell cars. they sold 10 cars a month over the summer because they taught them a system that sells 10 cars a month. We teach a 10, 12 car a month system, so we can't complain. If you're going to sell your dealership, let's do a service walk. Let's invest 5 to 7 minutes and walk them through service and explain to them how service functions, where they pull their car into, how they check in. Here's how the visors work. Here's how many techs we have. Here's how they're certified. Here's our parts department. We have everything you need here. This is important, especially to today's buyers. Again, I'm going to say it again. If you do what everybody else does, you're going to get the same results that everybody else gets. And folks, I'm telling you, most people are average. If you want to be average, God bless you. Go for it. I'm okay with it. I'll support you. I'm not average. I never do what everybody else does because I don't want to be like everybody else. Okay, moving on with why we only sell 10 to 12 cars a month. And if you see me keep looking over to the left, I got my checklist here, so I want to make sure I get through everything. Is these trial closes. Oh my gosh. And you've heard me talk about this all the time. Why would you lay out a trial close before you're done presenting? Why, before you walk inside, would you say something of, if we can come together in terms of numbers, would you buy the car today? I ask salespeople all the time, how many people say yes? And I get the same thing, not many. Then why do you ask that question? Oh, I know why. Because if they say no, then you ask them why. And now all you're doing is making them defensive again, and you're backing them into a corner. Did you not like the car? Did you not like me? Is the car too expensive? And now the customer gets backed into a corner and they get defensive. That's not the way to sell something. I'm so adamantly opposed to these trial closes. Listen, if you can't tell after being with a customer for an hour, hour and a half, whether they like the car, then you're in the wrong industry. I mean, this is the easiest sign people make. How about this one? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how would you rank the car? I would never tell you 10. When I ask salespeople that do this, I say, what percentage say 10? They go, I don't know, few. What do most people say? 7? And then we ask them, what would it take to make it a 10? Again, we're backing people into a corner. Listen, if you pick the right car and you're doing all the right steps and you went on a lengthy demo ride and they love the car, why do you need the trial close? Because you know why? Because now when you go touch desk, your manager's going to ask, are they buying the car? And I know I have managers on. I mean, thousands of people on this site right now watching this. And I know I'm going to make managers mad. If I went to a manager, listen, it's funny. It's like everybody's against everybody. It's like a war. I'm battling with the customer. I'm battling with the manager. The manager's battling with me. The manager's battling with the customer. The customer's battling with the manager. This is not a conducive environment. If I went to the desk and the manager said, are they buying the car today? I go, absolutely. Let's get my manager excited. Because if I say no, then he or she wants to know why. And then it drives everybody down. Listen, folks, I talk about this all the time. If you're not having fun, go do something else. I like to have fun. I want to enjoy my day. It's what I do 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I want to have fun with this. I don't believe in trial closes. I just don't. The next thing is, and this is a big reason why the average salesman sells 10 to 12 cars per month, and it's a two-part reason. We don't ask for the deal. We don't. You know, giving somebody 18 options and then telling them to circle the one that works best for them, that's not asking for the deal. That's asking for an opinion. And it's confusing to people. And now they have to think. I don't want people to think. They're excited. I want a yes or a no. You see, I've always told you before, you present your numbers, step up to the plate, ask the question. 7 most effective words to closing a car deal. Would you like to buy the car? And shut up. And it's not, would you like to buy the car today? That's 8 words. Today's a pressure word. Just ask. If you've done a great presentation and demonstration, just ask them, would you like to buy the car? And that brings up the next part, is that most salespeople are never trained on how to overcome an objection. When I say to you, the payment's too high, and then you respond back to me and say, well, what payment did you have in mind? That's not overcoming the objection. That's digging a hole you can't get out of. Because when you quote me a $400 payment and I say, no, payment's too high, and you ask me, what payment did you have in mind? And I say $300, you just dug a hole you can't get out of. And now you're going to grind and grind and grind the deal. And that's not fun. So, and here's the ironic thing about this. There's only 3 or 4 objections you get. That's it. I'm telling you. It's a price or payment objection. Okay. It's a trade objection, and it's an I want to think about it objection. Sure, sometimes it's not the right color, the right accessories, or they got to wait to talk to somebody else, and that happens too. How could you not be an expert at this? Look, I play golf. It's my only outlet. I love to play golf. I'm pretty good at it. It didn't come to me overnight. I practiced and practiced. If I told you how many golf balls I could hit, I used to hit in a day, it would make your head spin. But I wanted to perfect my swing. Now, do I still hit it to the right and to the left? Of course I do. But most of them go pretty well down the center because I practice. We don't practice. We don't train. We don't train like we want to win. We don't. And I'll be honest with you. And I've always told you the way I felt. We all think we know it all. We do. We think we know how to sell cars. And we know how to sell cars, 10 to 12 cars a month. I've talked to managers and dealers, especially managers who say, what are you going to teach me? I don't know. I don't know. But you're not going to know until you listen. And I've said this before. If you think you know it all, go do something else. Because what you're doing isn't fun anymore. If you're not getting better at what you do, it's not fun. Go get another challenge. Go sell vacuum cleaners door to door and become the best vacuum cleaner salesperson. I don't care what you do. But a know-it-all drags everybody down. And it's taking people down in our industry. And I don't like that. So if you want to be good at this, practice your objections. Write them down. Reread them over and over again. Say them over and over again. Perfect them. The number one objection is the number one and two objections are price and payment and trade. Study it, master it. Go on YouTube and listen to every single trainer that's got an idea of how to overcome those objections, and then formulate your own response. Don't copy somebody's because it's their response. If you like it, you can use it. Put your own personality into it. Make it your own, but perfect it so that when somebody at the end says to you, the payment's too high, you can snap right back and say, I understand exactly how you feel. When I'm in that situation, I have to buy a car, I always feel the payments are a little bit more than I actually want to spend. And it's frustrating, isn't it? And then go into response. Those are my trained responses because I've worked at it and I've worked at it and I've worked at it. Here's another reason why we don't sell more than 10, 12 cars is we have horrible, horrible follow-up skills. Horrible, horrible, okay? When someone doesn't buy a car, calling somebody back the next day is not going to get them to say, okay, you're right, I'm going to come into the dealership, because most of them aren't going to take your call. And sending them emails, they're going to spam and they're getting deleted. Text messaging is great, but why you're not sending them something of value, a video of the car they just looked at, something that they can consume with, something they can look at, they can watch, they can review. Remember, you're trying to outsell the other salespeople. The other salespeople they're going to go visit, because if they're better than you are and they do more steps and do it better than you do, you're going to lose the deal. And I'm going to tell you this. I fully believe this. They're going to make more gross than you do, because I do believe that the car, the personality of the salesperson, the dealership, you sell those three things and you're going to make a lot of gross. We're not good on so process. Let's just talk about prospecting in general. We don't prospect. Most of us don't prospect. It's amazing. First of all, I can't understand why you're not wearing a name tag all the time. That to me is mind-boggling. You should be wearing, and if you're not wearing logoed shirts, your name tag should have your logo on it. And when you're at work and you go places, your name tag should be on. Let people ask you questions what you do. I mean, I about a year ago, I was at a dealership. We went out for lunch. We were talking about prospecting. And at the end, the waitress came over, gave a thing. I said, hey, listen, I lied. I said, I work over at the local dealership here. Any chance that, you might be in the market for a car? We've got some great deals. And she said, no, I'm not, but it's funny you mentioned that. But my sister is. I said, great. And I took the other manager. I said, give her a card. She wants to come over. We'd love to talk to her. Now, did she come in? I don't know. I didn't follow up on it. At least I tried. I stepped up to the plate. I asked. Most of us don't ask. And I'm going to tell you this. If I was a salesperson today, I'm not taking ups. I don't do ups. I don't do ups. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't do push-ups, sit-ups, or pull-ups. I don't do anything with the word ups in it. I don't like them. Ups have the lowest closing ratio you can get, 13% nationally. Me personally, I'm working service lanes. I love the service department. I will sell 25 cars a month out of a good service department. Those people are ripe for the picking. Okay, so if you want to be better at what you do, you've got to find other ways to do that. And the final thing we need to talk about, and I'm going to go back to this, is our training. We're not training like we want to sell more cars. That's the key to things. For those of you that are active on our site, are you watching your videos? Are you attending the classes? I know a lot of you are, and that's great. It's wonderful. And I urge you to heed this. What we share with you on the videos and we share with you in the workshops, we don't expect you to accept everything. Interpret it into your personality. Twist it around how you see fit, as long as you're doing something different every time. You know, I know you've heard this 1,000 times before. After a customer leaves, if they did not buy, you need to take a minute and reflect and ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Now, understand this. Sometimes there is nothing you could have done differently. They weren't ready to buy. It wasn't the right situation. Maybe they did not like the car. That is a very good possibility. You know, I want to share with you another idea, and then I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to take your questions. I actually already see, let me just check here. I think there are some questions already coming in. To me, I always find baffling. Oh, I share with you something interesting. My son, my youngest son, is going to be a physicist, smarter than smart. No idea where he got it from. He's actually going on to his graduate work now. And he's the kind of kid, he doesn't know whether he wants to be a nuclear physicist or an astrophysicist. But a physicist deals with math. It's a math degree. It's a lot of math. And I don't know how this came up in conversation, but we were talking about how the average salesperson sells 10 cars a month. And he says, well, Dad, that's impossible. I said, no, how's it impossible? And something came up about salespeople that selling cars for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, still sell 10, 12 cars a month. He goes, Dad, that's impossible. It's mathematically impossible. What do you mean? Okay, Dad, if the average customer turns their car over every 4 years, and let's say the average salesperson sells 10 cars a month, mathematically, a percentage of those people would have to come back and rebuy another car from them. So let's just say it's 10%, 20%. That means in 4 years from now, they would go from 10 cars to 12 cars. And then in another 4 years, they'd go from 12 cars to 14 or 15 cars. And then another 4 years, it's just mathematically possible. And I said, Mitchell, listen, this is the car business. We can prove anything mathematically wrong. Trust me on that one. We can prove anything wrong. You see, the problem is we don't stay in touch with our customers after they buy their cars. We don't. All my kids have cars, and all people in my office here have cars. I'll bet you if I asked everybody, what was the name of your sales? And you go in my parking lot, there's all cars that are 2, 3, 4 years old. So these are all cars that were purchased in the last 2. What is the name of your salesperson? I'd be shocked if one person knew their salesperson's name. Shocked if one person knew their salesperson's name. How could that be? You see, when a customer buys a car, you need to stay in touch with them. Now, people argue with me about this, and I have a good friend of mine, Chris, who says I'm dead wrong with this, and it's just my personality and what I believe in. Don't send me a birthday card. Okay, really. Don't call me on my birthday. I'm a grown man. I don't need another grown man calling me, leaving me a message saying, hey, happy birthday, David. Hope all your wishes and dreams come true. It doesn't do anything for me, okay? At my age, birthdays are just another day in the week of the month of the year that I just go through. You should be calling your customer every 6 months just to remind them of scheduled routine maintenance. That's it. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. They're going to remember you. And don't hound them. Leave them a message. Send them a text. They're going to get the idea is that your name is in front of them. All you want is when they need a car, for you to call them. Or if someone they know needs a car, for them to call you. Now, I love this idea that I do. You want to go a step further? I'll give you a step further. This is for the true professional salesperson, the guy or gal that wants to sell 30 cars a month. You see, we don't sell everybody a car. Some people buy other cars at other dealerships. Sometimes they don't like what I sell and they go somewhere else. Once I make a contact, to me, it's a contact forever. So when I have that contact, if Mr. and Mrs. Smith decided to buy another brand, that's so be it. That's their decision. I wish them the best. I say it's a great car. I never say anything negative. But guess who I call in 6 months? Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I hope the car's going well. I don't know if the dealership you're working with follows up with you. But you know, that car, just like ours, requires maintenance every 6 months. We wanted to invite you to come in and have the maintenance done at our dealership. We'd be glad to service the car for you. Now, on that first call, most of them are going to say, no, we're going to go back to the dealership. It's free, whatever. Okay, great. Listen, my only reason was just to remind you, just to let you know, just to stay in touch. Great. Thank you very much. I guarantee you that person is going to tell somebody that I called them. They're going to go to work. They're going to tell their friends. You're not going to believe this. The guy that I didn't buy from called to remind me I had to do maintenance. And then who am I going to call again in 6 months? Just as if he was my customer, I'm going to call them. And every 6 months and every 6 months. You see, all I need for them is to refer one person, to decide to come back to me in 4 years. Maybe their kid needs a car, someone at work needs a car, and they're coming back to me. I'm keeping my name in front of them all the time. Listen, this is up to you. If you're a salesperson, you don't need a manager to tell you or guide you or give you permission. You're in your own business. If you're a manager, let's train our people how to do this and let's guide them and assist them. The average salesperson sells 10 to 12 cars per month. And I think the average salesperson can sell 14 to 18 cars a month if they do everything the right way. Okay, let's wrap up. I'll take some questions. Next week, staying on topic, I've already picked a topic. Usually I let you guys pick the topic, but I have a topic I want to do, and it's 8 prospecting tips. Let me share with you some great prospecting tips. So let me pull my questions up. I just got to pull them over here to another computer here. Okay, how can you convince a customer to buy a car? Who said this? Whoever is just a bunch of scribble. How can you convince a customer to buy a car? You don't convince the customer to buy the car. You sell them all the options, all the features, all the benefits. You do all the right things in the process, and they're going to buy it on their own. All right, Mickey, you said objections. The payment is too high. Refresh my memory. What is the best way to respond to that objection? Okay, so how would I respond to the customer that states the payment is too high? I would break it into increments. The idea behind this goal is to make them think. Okay, most of the time that payment is not too high. It is a reactionary comment. It's what they're planned and told to say. It's what they expect to say when we quote them a price. It's a normal thing. Excuse me, everybody does it. When someone says the payment's too high, the first thing I have to do is I have to lower their defenses because they're defensive. And so what I do is I agree with them. I say, listen, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I'm just like you. When I set out to buy a high ticket item like a car, I too want to make sure I'm getting a fair and reasonable price. And sometimes it can be very frustrating, can't it? And they're going to say, yes, it is. And I say, listen, let me share something interesting with you when it comes as far as the payment goes. I would say, you know, we all go to a restaurant, we all have a meal, and we all leave a tip. And when we leave a tip, I usually leave a 20% tip. So if my bill is $100, I leave a $20 tip. And you know what? I don't think twice about the tip. But here's the interesting thing about it. The next day, I forget about the meal. I forget about the tip. It's already gone out of my pocket. This is the exact same situation. When you're buying a car, I don't want you to make a mistake. I don't want you to be cheap on a car and then regret that decision. What you're going to spend today is similar to the same thing. Now, I'm not telling you not to go get a meal. I'm not telling you that. Still go enjoy the meal and leave a tip. But what you have to do is you have to give comparison. And then once you give that comparison, you have to ask for the sale again. You have to ask, would you like to buy the car? Okay, give them something to think about. Okay, Alyssa wants to know my thoughts on ranging payments to the customer up front in the sales process if they asked. Okay, Alyssa, I do not quote payments on anywhere in the process at all. If somebody says, give me a rough idea on a payment, I would say, I don't know what a rough idea of a payment is. Obviously, we could just take the price, divide it by 12, and add a couple of dollars for interest and let them do the math on their own. But I don't get into arranging payments in any way, shape, or form. I'm also, and it's just me personally, I am not an advocate of ranging payments when we quote payments. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. It's a personality situation. You have to do what you feel comfortable with. I would rather just tell them the payment. But again, every dealership works differently. Mel asks, what is the best way to handle someone who wants to go home and think about it? Well, Mel, we talked about this earlier. Why do they want to go home and think about it? They want to go home and think about it because one of those 3 elements didn't come into play. Okay, either they didn't find a car they love, they don't like you, or they don't want to do business at your dealership. Let's eliminate number 3 about your dealership. They're at your dealership. So it's either they don't like you or you've put them in the wrong car. My guess is it's going to be more the wrong car than hopefully you. So when the situation like that comes up, you got to let the customer go home. Sure, you can beat them up and beat them up and beat them up, and you can TO them and TO them and TO them and beat them to submission. I don't think that works. If I have to let them go, I send them a video. I do everything I can to follow up. But those are the situations where I go back and I evaluate and ask myself, what could I have done differently? All right. Carl the man. Okay, he wants to know how often should I follow up with my clients? Okay, well, I'm assuming these are sold customers. I believe you should follow up every 6 months. We talked about that. Andy says, how do I handle someone who just wants a price during the meet and greet? I'm assuming, oh wait, hold on. You're writing something else to me right now. Okay, how do I, oh, okay, all right, Andy, I get what you're asking me. Okay, he wants to know, how do you, I'm assuming it's what you want. What do you do with the customer that walks up and says, hey, and points at a car and says, what's your best price on that car over there? And that happens all the time. It typically happens on pre-owned cars. You have them up on the front row. People drive by, they see the car, they have an interest. You have to understand with these people. Are they buyers today? Probably not. They saw something that caught their eye. They weren't out looking for this. So you have to get them into your process. So if somebody says to me, hey, what's the best price on that car over there? The first thing I need to do is get them over to the car. I want them at the car. It does me no good to be anyplace else but the car. I'd say, come on, let's go over to the car. Let me get all the information so I can get you that pricing. They are going to follow you. Why? Because they think that you are going to get them that price. When I get there, I'm going to write down the stock number and I'm going to say, I'll be right back. Let me go get you the price. Again, I'm letting them think that they're getting them the price. We all know what that customer is going to do. They're going to look at the car. They're going to look in the windows. They're going to walk around the car. They're going to size it up. And I give them 3 or 4 minutes to do that. Then I usually come back out with the keys in my hand. And my comment is, my manager is tied up with another customer. He said it would only be a few minutes. While we're waiting, I brought the keys out. I thought maybe you would like to sit in the car. You will get a large percentage of people to sit in the car. At that point there, I would say, listen, let's do a quick drive. If we can get them to drive the car around the block. And this time I might do a short ride, depending on how I feel about the situation. Get them back in and then say, come on, let's go inside. I'm sure he'll have the price all ready for us. Is that going to work 100% of the time? Of course not. But I'm not going to go inside and get them a price and bring them a price back out because they're just going to say, okay, thank you. Because no matter what you tell them, it's going to be too much money. If you have a car that's worth, this is what's hard. If you have a car in the used car that's worth $15,000 and you're going to market to $16,000 and you tell them it's $12,000, they still say, okay, thanks, and they're going to leave because they don't have any relativity to what that is. Okay. Okay, awesome car guy. Okay, what are your thoughts about asking questions during the demo ride? Our training has us peppering them with questions. All right, awesome car guy. That's not an awesome idea to me. I can tell you that right now. When I'm on the demo ride, I take the old-fashioned rule. Little children should be seen and not heard. A salesperson should be silent until spoken to. I believe that I sit silent. I don't say a word. I don't say a word. There will be conversation. There is no way that a customer can sit in that car and not have dialogue with me. If it's just one person, they're going to talk to me. If it's husband and wife, they might talk to each other, then talk to me, and then I will get involved in conversation. The demo drive is not a place for you to be selling. It's a place for them to be falling in love with something. I absolutely do not want to be explaining features and benefits while Mr. Smith is driving the car down the interstate. I can tell you that right now. I want it to be casual dialogue. Mrs. Smith asked me, how long have I worked at the dealership? I've been here for 5 years. She said, do you like working here? I said, I love working here. Then I might say, well, what kind of work do you guys do? And now it's conversation. She asked me where I live. Then I might say, well, what part of town do you guys live in? But I'm going to stay in the fact of letting them control the dialogue and the conversation during the demonstration ride. Gordy wants to know, how do I break out of a slump? Great question. That's a great question. And I'm going to shock you with my answer to this. The old school thought is when a salesperson goes in a slump, we say to the salesperson, go back to the basic steps. No. Because here's what happens when you're in a slump. You push, because you're trying to get out of the slump. And now you start trying to size people up. So now you're in a 7-day slump. 2 cars pull in, a single guy in a pickup truck and a family in a minivan. Which one do you pick? No matter what you pick, you're going to pick the wrong one. I can tell you that right now. It's the law of averages. You're going to pick the wrong one. And then when you pick them, you're going to try to pre-qualify them up front to find out if you do have a deal. Listen, Gordy, the best way to get out of a slump is stop trying to close car deals. If you're in a 7-day slump, commit yourself to another 7 days of slump and stop trying so hard. Just do all the right things. And you know what? You're going to come out of that slump. All of a sudden, a couple of days, you're going to buy and say, oh my God, I sold 3 cars today. If you keep pushing the slump, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the slump. When you're in the slump, stay in the slump. Just do all the right things. You call it the basics, but don't focus on closing car deals. Just do all the right things and you're going to get out of it. I'm going to take one more question. Alba, does selling value really matter today? Everyone just wants the lowest price anyways. Okay. Yes, value matters to everybody. Value is what brought them to your dealership most of the time. They've already been online. They've already looked at your vehicles. They already know what you have. Now they're coming to do those two important factors. They're trying to get more information. It can be availability, colors, pricing, options, accessories. That's number one. And number two, they're there to size you up. And both of those things matter in value. Folks, you cannot convince me differently. There is a reason why some salespeople make higher grosses than others. There's a reason. And it's because they have better presentation and demonstration skill sets. That is what creates your gross. Your presentation and demonstration creates your gross. You do a lousy presentation and demonstration, the odds are you're going to have a lousy gross. You do a great presentation and demonstration, you're going to have better grosses. Value does absolutely matter. 100% it matters.
Thank you for watching my video, and I hope I inspired you. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and click the subscribe button. Once you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell so you can receive more content like this every week. And should you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear them.